How you doing? I'm your man, John Wilson. We got a good one for you today.
Yay. Oh my God.
We do. Today we will understand what the Pythagorean Theorem is and how to use it to solve real-world problems and situations. Additionally, nope, you don't have this. Don't worry about it. Additionally, we will use the converse of the Pythagorean Theorem. When I say converse, I don't mean the shoes. The converse of the Pythagorean Theorem to determine the validity of suspected right triangles. Converse simply means if this equation is only for right triangles, then you have to satisfy the equation to be a right triangle. You got to have a true statement. We'll get there. Right now, we're starting off with the basics. This is the Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Important note, it only applies to right triangles. Does not apply to obtuse, acute, or any other type of triangle. Just right triangles. Now, a right triangle is a triangle where the largest of the interior angles is a right angle, aka 90 degrees. Right triangles will have a right angle sign if they are not marked as 90 degrees. That's how you can identify them. It doesn't say 90, look for the little right angle sign. That lets you know you can use the Pythagorean Theorem to find either of these measures, A, B, or C. Very, very important. In any right triangle, the two sides that form the right angle, looks like this right here, right angle. The two sides that form the right angle are known as the legs. The legs are perpendicular. They meet at a right angle. The two legs may or may not be equal. So the two shorter sides right here, very important that you understand this. These two shorter sides, sides that meet to form a right angle, they are the legs. They form a right angle. The other side, this side right here, this long side, does this form a right angle anywhere, this long side? No, it does not. Only the shorter sides do. The long side, always the longest side. That's important to know as well. The hypotenuse will always be the longest side. It's known as the hypotenuse. It connects the ends of the two legs. None of the legs will ever be as long as the hypotenuse. Which means if I gave you three numbers, 7, 15, and 12, which of those numbers has to be the hypotenuse? 15. Which one? 15. Hypotenuse will always be the largest number. These two will represent the legs. Always, always, always the largest number, that's the hypotenuse. We'll come back to why that's important later on. Alright, so here we're going to try to solve the missing measure of this triangle. Now what do we know here? Do we know the legs, the hypotenuse, what? What do we know?
Legs.
We know the legs. What are the measures of the legs, class?
3 and 4.
3 and 4. And then Mabel, what's the length of the hypotenuse? C. We don't know it yet. So we know that the legs are 3 and 4. We know that the hypotenuse is C. The hypotenuse, when we substitute it into the Pythagorean Theorem, will always be isolated on the right side of the equation all by itself. So we can write our equation just like this. We know what the legs are. We have to square them. Remember, the Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared. So since the legs, a and b, are 3 and 4, it becomes 3 squared plus 4 squared. What do you think goes here?
The
C squared. C squared. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. Once you bring your equation, your job is then to go in and solve it. And you're going to basically doing the same thing over and over and over. You're going to square, you're going to add, and you're going to root. Let me show you what it looks like. All right. We're going to square these two. What's 3 squared?
9.
9 plus 4 squared is 16. That equals c squared. We do the addition, we squared it, now we're going to add it. What's 9 plus 16, guys? 25 equals c squared. Is that my answer, though?
No.
No. I don't want c squared, I want just c by itself. So we're going to write this over here, and let's see who remembers. What's the opposite of squaring something?
Taking a square
Taking
root.
the square root. So what we need to do here is we need to take the square root of both sides. We'll take the square root of 25. What is the square root of 25?
5.
5. That's a perfect square. Perfect square. Is that rational or irrational? Rational. Hey, there we go. What is, Madison, what's 7 to 0 power?
1.
Yay! 5 is equal to, and then what happens here, when you take the square root of c squared, the exponent drops off. That's what we want. So it's no longer c squared. We took the root of it. It's just c, and that's my answer. 5 is equal to c, so that means that this side over here, the hypotenuse, is 5. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, because the hypotenuse is always the longest side. It has to be 5. What if somehow I made some crazy mathematical error and I said, all right, so this is 2. Does that make any sense?
No.
No. So the hypotenuse always has to be
Larger than the legs.
5. Okay. Moving over here. Let's try another one. Let's go around the room here. Ali, what are the lengths of the legs here?
5 and 7.
5 and 7. Okay, 5 and 7. Flash.
Savior of the universe.
Flash. What is the hypotenuse, man? Do we know it? Do we know what it is? No. So what letter represents the hypotenuse? Well, C. Could use X technically. We like to use C because that's how the formula is written. So we're just going to write C. We're trying to find the length of the hypotenuse, and then you can write the equation out just like this. Tell me, oh, she's not here. Tell me, she's not here. Tell me, Rudy, tell me, what is the equation going to look like, dude?
5 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared.
Yes, your equation is going to look like 5 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. All right, so we square them. 5 squared is? 7 squared is?
40.
And 25 plus 49 is equal to c squared. We squared them. Now, what do I got to do? Square, then we add them together. 25 plus 49 gives me 74. 74 equals c squared. The last part is we have to
Take the square root.
take the square root. We need to get rid of this exponent. We want it to drop off. So I'll take the square root of both sides. Let me ask you a question though. Looking at this, is this number going to be rational or irrational?
Irrational.
Irrational. It is not a perfect square. There's one of two ways you can answer this. One, you can write the square root of 74 is equal to c, because it is technically the square root of 74 is equal to just c. Or you can actually take the root. I would round to the nearest 10. On a quiz or a test, I'll tell you exactly what I want. I will never ask for this answer. The reason I'm showing you this is because this may pop up on your FSA. This may be a viable choice, just so you've seen it. I will always ask you to actually take the root and round it to the nearest 10, the nearest 100th. In this case, let's do nearest 10. What would it be to the nearest 10? No, nearest 10, that would be
8.6.
8.6. So 8.6 is equal to c. You take the square root of 74, and you'll get 8.60 something 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 something. That rounds to 8.6. Now we're going to see what happens when it's one of the legs that we're missing. Here, Shimon, what are the lengths of the legs? A and 12. So A and 12. Notice that this time we're not trying to find the hypotenuse. Instead, we're trying to find the legs. That's going to change up how we solve this equation just a little bit. What is the length of the hypotenuse, Matt? What's the length?
Me?
Yes.
Obviously, Madison. Alright, 13.
13. All right. So since we're trying to find the leg, that's going to change how we would write this equation. Adriana, how would you write this equation? What would you write?
You would write
What's the first thing? A, right? We don't know A, right? So what would you write?
A
A
squared
squared
plus 12
plus
squared
12 squared equals
13.
13 squared. Perfect. A squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared. So we have to go in and we have to square the values that we are able to. We cannot square A, so we can square 12 and 13. So we're going to write A squared. What is 12 squared? 144 equals 13 squared. 13 times 13 is equal to what? Anybody?
169.
169. Notice we're actually going to have to solve this equation a little bit now. We have to get the A term isolated on the left side of this equation all by itself. So what would I do? Calco, what would I do?
You need to subtract 144 from both
So I
sides.
subtract 144 from both sides, and I'm going to get A squared is equal to 25. That looks like a familiar number. I think we might know how to find this now. So A squared equals 25. Lucas, what do I have to do now, man?
You take away
I take away what? I have to take the,
2 away.
no, I have to take, how do I take it away then? I have to take the square
You gotta take the square root.
root. So I take the square root of both sides. This drops off. I'll have a square root of 25. 5. So square root of 25 is 5, which means that this is 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it does, because it's not the largest side. On this one right here, let's go to Gutierrez. What are the lengths of the legs?
10 and C.
C represents the hypotenuse. We know the hypotenuse. What do you want to put here? You can put X, or you can just say it's B. Whatever, it's one of the legs, right? A or B. I'll say 10, and I'll use B. Because I always like to make this smaller side the A, and make this the B. What is the length of the hypotenuse? Maria, what is it?
20.
20, okay. We're gonna write an equation out for this. What is it gonna look like, Dylan?
It's gonna be 10 squared.
10 squared plus
equals 20 squared.
B squared equals 20 squared. So I square. 10 times 10 gives me 100, plus B squared equals 400. What do I do now, Brianna?
Thank you.
Yeah, subtract 100 from both sides, and those will cancel, and I will get B squared is equal to what? 300. Good. So I'm going to take the root now of both sides, and I will get B is equal to what? Round it to the nearest 10. 17.32, so nearest 10 would be 17.3. That's one answer, or you could just put B is equal to the root of 300 if you didn't want to simplify it, but I would prefer the simplified answer, and I will tell you on your homework reading quizzes or your test which one I'm looking for. What's up? Try one more here. Let's go to Juan. What are we trying to find here?
Probably. The legs.
We're trying to find one of the legs, right? The height of this light post, lighthouse. Oh, okay, lighthouse. Yeah, the height of this lighthouse represents one of the legs. Here's my right triangle right there. So I'm trying to find one of the legs. What equation could you write for this, dude?
H squared.
Okay, yeah, we can use H. H squared plus
168 squared
168 squared equals
equals 193 squared.
equals 193 squared. And then Juan, what is 168 squared? What do you got, dude?
How about 25?
Good. Can I do
Yeah, what is it?
28,224?
28,224?
Yeah.
Is that what everybody got?
Yeah.
Okay, equals, what is 193 squared?
37,249.
37,249. To get H squared alone, we subtract 2H224 from both sides, and we will end up over here. This will cancel, and I'll have H squared is equal to what? 9,000 what? 9,025. What is the last thing I have to do? Chris, what's the last thing I gotta do, dude? I got one. We're here now. We squared it, we added it, now we have to take the square root of both sides. So we take the square root here and here. Square root of H squared becomes just H, and then Chris, give me the square root of 9,025 to the nearest 10. What? No, or 90? 90 point, what was it? Oh,
Yeah, is that whole-
95. Okay, so H is equal to 95, which means the height, good job. So the height of this lighthouse is 95 feet. Any questions?
No.
Yeah. So, what we're doing next is what happens when the Pythagorean Theorem appears in a three-dimensional plane, such as, think about real world. UPS is shipping you a box. Somebody's going to ship you something in a UPS box. Maybe like, I don't know, one of those flags the color guard's using. And they have to figure out what size box to fit that diagonal pole in. the pole will not go in straight down. It would go diagonal. That would maximize the distance and it would maximize the space of the box. Cheaper box, cheaper for you to ship. In order to solve this, there's a long, drawn-out way, which don't do this, but it's you finding the hypotenuse here. This is 3, this is 3. You find the hypotenuse. Then you realize that this is a right triangle. You find the next one. You go on from there. Or you can forget all that wonderfulness, and you can realize that when you're presented with the Pythagorean Theorem in 3 dimensions, Shimon, and you're trying to find the length of a diagonal, here's what you do. What are these numbers, Shimon? Give me the 3 numbers. 6, 3, and 4. You take each of the dimensions, 6, 3, and 4. And this is all you're saying to yourself, all right? I'm squaring, I'm adding, and I'm taking the root. So 6 squared plus 3 squared plus 4 squared. That's all you're doing. You're squaring them, you're going to add them together. What's 6 squared? 36. Plus, what's 3 squared? 9. Plus, what's 4 squared? 16. You add all these together, you're going to get 61. I need to take, the last step is to take the root. So I take the root of 61. That's not going to be a perfect square, but can somebody round that for me to the nearest tenth? What's it going to be? That's going to be 7.8. All you're doing is taking the dimensions. You square them, you add them, you take the root. Alright, so that one problem's done. We'll try one more here. A box is used for shipping a volleyball set. The dimensions are 10 by 20 by 40. What is the longest length of support pole that will fit into the box? Which means basically it's just another way of saying diagonal plane right there. We want to solve that. So we just take the 3 dimensions. Shimon, what are my dimensions? 10, 20, and 40. Chris, what am I doing with those dimensions? It's 3 words. Square, add, root. What's the first thing we do to it? We square them. 10 squared plus 20 squared plus 40 squared. We've got to square them, and then we're going to add them together, and we'll take the root. 10 squared gives me 100, plus 20 squared gives me 400, plus 40 squared gives me, anybody? 1,600. You add all those together, you get 2,100, and all we have to do to finish this bad boy up is take the root of 2,100, which is going to be what? 45.8. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep, 45.8. Don't forget the unit, inches. That is the longest length of a support pole that you can fit into that there box. Any questions on this? No? Alright. Alright, last thing right here is the converse of the Pythagorean theorem that simply states this. For a right triangle, since a squared, we all know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If a squared plus b squared equals c squared, it means it's a right triangle. If a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared, it is not a right triangle. Boom, boom. That is just simply representative of false and true statements. I'm going to show you what this looks like. It's super easy. This is why we always save it for the end. Write that in, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. 36. What's 8 squared? 64. What's 10 squared? 100. We add these together. We get 100 equals 100. What type of statement is that? True. That's a true statement. If you get a true statement, that means it is in fact a right triangle. If you do this and you get a false statement, what do you think? It's not a right triangle. What's 2 squared? 4. What's 8 squared? 64. Equals 10 squared is 100. We add these together. 68 equals 100. Is that true or false? That is false. So this is not a right triangle. This is not hard. It's just true or false statements. One more up here. We have 3 measures. Which is the only one of these that can be the hypotenuse? 15. That's the only thing you need to know. So the hypotenuse is going to be 15. And then the legs are going to be 9 and 12. So if we want to figure out if this is a right triangle, we do 9 squared plus 12 squared equals 15 squared. That's going to give me 81 plus 144 equals 225. We add them together. I get 225 equals 225. What type of statement is that? True. True. This is a true statement, so this is a right triangle. The converse has been satisfied. As long as you get a true statement, it is a right triangle. If you get a false statement, it is not a right triangle. We still got 2 minutes left. Beautiful thing. We're then gonna finish up with the kids. All right, we're almost done. One last thing to go. Looking up here. Chris, what's the hypotenuse? Which one? Which one? Guys, which one's the hypotenuse? 25. Remember, the hypotenuse always has to be the bigger side, the largest side. So if you have three measures, biggest one's always the hypotenuse. So my legs are going to be 18 and 19. Hypotenuse is 25. We put this into our formula and we see if this is going to give us a true statement. 18 squared plus 19 squared equals 25 squared. We do the math here, hold on. And we're going to have 324 plus 361 equals 625. We add these together, that's 685 equals 625. What type of statement is that? False. False statement. This is not a right triangle. Converse is not satisfied. And that's it, man. That's all you gotta do. Think up, covered